Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg, and this is It's Okay to Be Old, a show about all things aging well. February is National Heart Health Month, and today my hope is that I will bring awareness, help prevent, and encourage early detection and proper treatment of heart disease. My guest today is Ann Cutbill Lenane, and she had a near fatal heart attack a couple of years ago, but she is now flourishing and continues to amaze and inspire everyone around her. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. I love that introduction.
Now, there's so much more to your story. You're also known as Annie Gets It Done. You're
Yes,
the number one Manhattan Douglas Elliman broker, and you
I
founded
am.
the Wise and Wonderful Women's Movement. You're involved in so many things, which we'll get to in a little bit. You are a nonstop powerhouse and role model for women who really want to keep going. So, in honor of Heart Health Month, and again, we'll talk about everything
Mhm.
else,
Of
and
course.
bringing awareness to heart disease, could you tell us your story?
So, as part of, being a broker for 43 years in Manhattan, I would meet all these wonderful people and women, and I decided to start. I also had a taxi ad. That's actually how it started. Uh, for real estate, I would advertise in the taxis. And then one day I thought, you know what? This would be hysterical if I actually advertised for a man.
Yeah.
So I put in a taxi ad that ended up going viral. Like more than 15 million people around the world saw it. And it was if you can appreciate a fit and fabulous 56-year-old woman, feel free to give me a call. And what was crazy about it was, besides the phone calls I got from jail from the gentleman,
Yeah.
but I had women emailing me and calling me and saying how brave I was. And I said, well, why? Because I said I was looking for love. And they said, yeah. And I said, because I said I was 56. And they said, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, that has got to stop. There's no expiration date on us. And I had just moved into a building that had this beautiful amenity space. So the Wise and Wonderful Women was born. And every year, because I had heard the statistics that 1 out of 3 women dies of heart disease in this country, which is including aneurysms and strokes and heart attacks. But 1 out of 3, and we're all running around and getting our mammograms. That's 1 out of 33 women dies of breast cancer.
Uh-huh.
But no one's really paying attention. So every year, I would have a female cardiologist, Dr. Suzanne Steinbaum, come and speak to us. And she would say, you're going to go to an ER and you're going to be treated differently. Your symptoms are often going to be different. They might present themselves as the flu or nausea or pain in your jaw. So, not the typical, like, I'm having a
Right.
heart attack and I'm a 65-year-old overweight chain smoking male sitting in my recliner, right? It's going to present differently. So, year after year, I would hear this. So, I was at a retreat in the Netherlands by myself and I started to not be able to breathe. And there was a shooting pain, just kind of more like between my shoulder blades. And I couldn't catch my breath. And I had a history of high cholesterol. And I'll explain that about early detection in a second. I wasn't taking a statin because the statins had made me very achy, but also because I hadn't seen the damage that was actually there, that was building up, which I'll tell you about in a second. And it took over 2 hours for me to get someone to take it seriously. They kept saying, let's walk you around, let's get you some air. And kept saying, I've got a history of clotting. I've got to, please, you need to get me help. Now, in the Netherlands, and it's important to know what different medical care is around the world. To have proper insurance. Just because you have travel insurance
Uh-huh.
does not mean that you are going to be covered for any medical care in another country. And if you have to be airlifted or moved or medically moved, you need to know if you have insurance. Does your health insurance cover you outside the country, right? That's a bit, the most don't. Okay,
I
so
love that
you
you're
need to
bringing
know
that
that,
up. It's
right?
so people just go and do things without thinking it through.
Right.
That's
And they
so
go, I have
important.
insurance. I'm like, no, you don't. You really don't. So anyway, that's another thing. So you can't in the Netherlands just drive to the ER. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to either have your doctor, which of course I didn't have a doctor, or have the EMS folks take you there. So 2 hours of begging them to
Oof.
call somebody. The EMS people got there. There were 3 men. They were saying things, and I'm like, and they said, breathe into a bag breathe like you're doing yoga. You do yoga, don't you? They're speaking in English, and I was like, yeah, I do. Breathe into the bag as though I was hyperventilating and having a panic attack. And I kept calmly saying, I have a history. Da 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 da. They did an EKG on me. Then they say, well, it's not your heart, and they start packing up their things after an hour. Now, we've all done this with medical care. I can tell you, mostly women, because women don't want to be perceived as aggressive, as a bitch,
Hmm.
as being too tough. But when you are also in a medical environment, you feel like you're a captive audience because they are really in control. So there's always this fine line between advocating for yourself and pushing, but also feeling like if you push too hard, you're you're going to be put to the end of the line.
Right.
So they were leaving and they were packing up their stuff. And I had been told that I couldn't just walk into an ER. And I knew if those people walked out the door, I was dead. And I grabbed the arm of an older man that was walking out the door and I looked him in the eye and I said, please don't leave me here. Is there anyone else you can call? Okay. Because I had been vacillating between gasping for air and saying, so have you been to New York? Tell me about your family. I did not want them to walk out of that room.
Right. Right.
And so, but I knew, and now they were leaving. Their stuff was packed. They were leaving, and I grabbed the arm, and they speak in Dutch. Then they kind of like, oh, they dial. I hear a woman on the other end of the phone, and she says something to them, and I then say, I hear her say, put her on the phone. And within 3 breaths of me talking to her, she says, I've heard enough. Bring her in. So it was another 2 hours of being in the ER with them not taking it seriously,
I
leaving me
know.
untethered. It was crazy. And anyway, finally, and my cardiologist was calling from the US. Finally, they did a test. And these are the two tests that you absolutely need immediately. A troponin, which will give you the enzyme that gets released by your heart if you're having a heart attack. It's a simple blood test. It takes not a long time to get back. And then there's also something called a D-dimer. And the
Mhm.
D-dimer will tell you if you are having a clotting issue. Okay, so these are
Okay.
things that are very, very basic. Also, you should, and I'm not a doctor, but what I have learned is that if you take 4 baby aspirin, also it's going to thin your blood immediately. It's something that if you have any kind of heart issues at all, you should always carry with you. But anyway, so long story short, all of a sudden they kept coming in and are the tests back? 2 hours. It's insane. All of a sudden I saw the young doctor look at my screen. And at that point, somebody from the retreat was with me and I'm on the bed and I see his face and he runs out and I say to the person with me, take my phone, take a picture of the screen. And as soon as I took a picture of the screen, I sent it to my cardiologist. And then I started to look and I was like looking and I was like, it said troponin, and I might not be pronouncing it right.
No,
And
that's
I
correct. I
Googled,
just had that
I,
test
right,
done, so it's correct. Yeah.
and I Google it and I see immediately, simultaneously with my cardiologist calling me from New York saying, you're in the middle of a heart attack.
Mhm.
And I had been in the middle of a heart attack for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is imperative. I could not have done anything differently. It's interesting. There were many, like, this was not an ER full of people. There were 2 of us in the entire ER. There were probably 10 or 12 doctors and nurses. That wasn't the issue. But the issue was the lack of, I didn't present as though I was having a heart attack.
Right.
What the hell? I can't breathe. I'm nauseous. I've got a shooting pain in my back and in my chest at that point. Come on, folks, right? But this is not new news. And what had happened to me is I kept thinking about my cardiologist every year telling me, you will not be taken seriously when you get to the ER,
Hmm.
right? And that's what saved me because I knew something was wrong. If you had asked me if I was having a heart attack, I would have also said no. I thought I was having an embolism. I had been on a plane. I'm thinking I
Okay.
have a clot in my lungs. My mother had had it many years before. I'm thinking that's what it is. Never would I have thought it was a heart attack. But you know what? You need to have the proper testing.
Right.
Um, so that was at that point, I was then moved to another hospital later, like the next morning, because my heart had torn. And it turns out that I actually did have a fairly small blockage in my heart. And that blockage had not been found. And let me tell you what test every woman, every person over anybody that has heart disease, probably over 40, but there's a calcium score that they've been doing for many years. It does involve radiation, but there's now a new test called the Clearly. It's Cleery. What that is the same amount of radiation. It's a CAT scan, but they add AI. A CAT scan, or what your calcium score reads, is only hard plaque. So when I went to the doctor, when I had my high cholesterol and I have this lifestyle that was really pretty healthy, but I had high cholesterol and my ratios were off, I had inflammation, and my doctor wanted me to take a statin, and I wouldn't take it because it made me achy. I said, why would I take a statin? I have no damage, right? I don't have a blockage, so I don't need it. I did have blockage. I had soft plaque, and soft plaque is shown by the Clearly through that AI addition to the test. It's about $1,800 if you don't have insurance. Doctors oftentimes will say, just to a friend of mine, who is a former smoker, overweight, has never worked out a day in her life. She's 67 or 8
Oh,
years old. Her cardiologist said to her, I don't believe in those tests. You don't need it.
oh,
And
that's
only
outrageous,
it's
Anne.
outrageous.
Oh my
And it was
God.
only because a friend of hers in the office had this calcium score. Did she push? And he says, well, you're going to have to pay for it out of pocket. And she's like, that's okay. Like
Right.
pushing back, pushing back. She went in and she has a calcium score of 400. Okay. I don't even know what it is with the soft plaque, but the hard plaque is 400. And that is serious heart disease. She ends it up having 3 stents
Oh,
from a doctor that told her he doesn't believe in this testing. So the Clearly is really, really important. Advocating for yourself is really important, and taking the proper statins. Soft plaque, as I mentioned, is more dangerous than hard plaque. Not to say that hard plaque is good. It's just that it's more unstable. That's
hmm.
the things that move. And so if you have this bad, if you have this bad um, uh, kind of reaction to statins, which many people do, there are other drugs that you can use. There's a Repatha, which is an injection. There's a combination of both. And sometimes it's also a matter of taking some supplements that kind of help alleviate some of that achiness that you have. Um, but proper testing and being taken seriously, number one. Number one, number one, number one.
And I want to share with you, which I'm going to do another show about. I just had all of those tests done because I went into the hospital. I went to urgent care to have a sty looked at because it wouldn't go away. I had the panic attack of the century. My blood pressure was 189 over 105. That's stroke level. I went to the ER. They took me right away, and my friend's daughter happened to be the physician on call, and she
Right.
did everything. And I had the troponin test. I had the
The
CAT scan
Adama.
with the iodine and the AI. I had all of it done, and there was a little bit there, and I immediately went on the statin. So far, so good. I'm on a very low dose. But I'll tell you, I never in a million years, I'm with you, honey. I never in a million, I've run 20 marathons. I am never thought I'd have anything. It doesn't matter. You need to go and get, I think
Right.
you should go, even if you're not having symptoms, go to a
No, why
cardiologist,
why are you going to
get
wait
a
till you have
full
symptoms?
workup.
Right.
And the beauty of being, I'm 65 now, and the beauty of being 65 is Medicare, and if you have a fairly good secondary, most of this stuff is covered. And
Right.
I want to tell you, I hear you loud and clear, even in the ER when my blood pressure wouldn't come down. Once you have a panic response to the numbers, you can't calm down. It's so scary to be there. And then all the people that are screaming and all the emergency stuff going on around you. And the nurses kept saying, oh, just relax, just sit down and relax. We'll come and get you. It,
Well, the
all
thing
they
is,
have to do is say, I understand this is frightening for you.
right,
Like
right. There was a
one
wonder,
little line, one little something of reassurance would make all the difference in the world on how we react. Because my husband wanted to get up and walk out. That's not the
right.
right solution either, and I'm sure plenty of people do. Um, And I don't know, do going to women cardiologists make a difference? Sometimes it
Well,
does.
it does. The stats actually show that you'll be alive
Okay.
a lot longer.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
here's the craziness. It was not until the 90s that women were being properly looked at
Hmm.
as, guess what? Men and women are different. All of heart disease research was done on men
Hmm. Hmm.
across the board.
Yeah.
It was only until how many years ago? So we are so behind. And people, there were stats. My if it you should follow anybody that wants to follow a wonderful cardiologist, Dr. Suzanne Steinbaum.
Okay.
Um, and watch her Instagram because the stats are crazy. Doctors, internists, and doctors. By the way, there was I had a retreat that I did for my wise and wonderful women, and there was somebody that was supposed to come, and we were leaving the next day, and she called on Thursday. She goes, "I went to urgent care, and we're texting because I've got a lot on my mind." And she's saying, I'm having trouble breathing, and they think maybe it might be COVID or whatever, and I'm not really paying attention. And then I go, you know what? Let me call her. So I call her and I said, what you don't sound congested because I'm thinking COVID, she's
Yeah.
congested,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I can't breathe." And she goes, no, no, I just can't breathe. Maybe it's the flu. And I said, well, why? Do you have a fever? She said, no, I'm exhausted. So exhaustion, and here's the thing. We all don't want to be running to the ER. I'm exhausted. I
Right.
threw up. I'm having a heart attack. I'm going to die. Okay. But listen to your body if you're not feeling the same way. And what an ER doctor said to me was about a month or two after I had the heart attack and I started to get a real pain in my chest. It turned out to be gas, but you know what? I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel so stupid. I think this is gas. But I remember my doctor saying to me, they're there anyway. You're
Yes.
not calling somebody in the middle of the night. They're
Yes.
in the ER. And you know what? If you don't go to the ER, they'll be out of business. There was a wonderful doctor at the Cornell ER, and I wanted to actually send her something. And you know what? This is gonna push me to do that because I want to thank her. I went in and I said I had had a heart attack. They'll take you right away. If you say those are the words, I can't breathe and I
Right.
feel like I'm having a heart attack, they will take you.
Hmm.
So I said to her, I feel so stupid. Now, I can tell you that most men would not apologize, would not say, I'm so sorry. I'm here, you know. And she said, you're so smart to be here. Like you're smart to be here. We're here anyway. Let
Right.
me check you out. And thank goodness it was nothing. But obviously, I'm being more mindful of it. But we all should be. We should not overextend our medical ERs. But if you think something's wrong, if you're exerting yourself, like if you're doing an exercise that you normally do, or walking up a flight of stairs where you're having trouble catching your breath where you didn't before,
Mhm.
um a check like in your jaw. Interesting. It's a sign. Jaw pain. Strange, right? Not historically, I mean, yes, of course you can get kind of the pain in your arm, but you can also have it, it's just it's different kinds of symptoms sometimes for women.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that chest clenching
Right.
symptom that we see in the
Exactly.
Hollywood heart attack, right?
Now, the other
Yeah.
thing is too, and I'm on the executive committee now for the American Heart Association, and they have also members of the survivors, and we are 15 people that were chosen for 2026 to talk around the city. So if anybody has a women's any group, it's focused on women, but listen, we all, men and women, have heart attacks,
Absolutely.
strokes, and aneurysms, right?
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
we're here to talk to anybody's office or groups or whatever. But I have numerous young people, somebody at 37, somebody at 24 that had strokes.
Mm.
So anybody that's got a young person that is having shooting pain in their head. Now, people get migraines, and I get that. But when you have a migraine that is more intense than you think, or all of a sudden you've got numbness in your body, you got to get it checked out just because you're 24. I have a 24-year-old friend that had a stroke, a 37-year-old that almost died. Birth control pills can lead to stroke. So people in the fertility, kind of that age where you
Right.
look young. Do you know that my 37-year-old friend was at her health club playing paddleball in a tournament? She fell down to the ground with her arm like numb, her face, her leg. The EMS people, first of all, took them 45 minutes to call. Why?
Oh, that's
Then hold
horrible.
on. Then they call and EMS shows up because she doesn't present. She's too young to be
Correct.
having a stroke. They
Right.
gave her Narcan
Oh my
as though she would be
God.
doing fentanyl or cocaine on
Oh
the
my
paddleboard.
God. Yeah.
Right. So she couldn't speak for almost a year
Yeah.
after
Oh,
that little incident.
okay.
So when you don't present a certain way, does not mean that you're not having a medical emergency.
And we all succumb to the societal pressure of perfection. Okay. Unfortunately, which we all know doesn't exist. And just being in that state has such toxic effects on your body. The constant angst, and people say, well, I want to be on top of my game, or I want to be the best I can very be. The old, especially in our age group, it's like, well, I don't need any sleep. I'm just like these crazy notions we had
Right.
growing up about that you shut your mouth and you buck up and you do whatever. We all know that none of that is true anymore. I want to ask you, what are some lifestyle habits that you engage in for your wellness now?
Well, I felt, and just touching on that shame, right?
Hmm.
Because women are never skinny enough, young enough looking, like all this other nonsense, right? I grew up in a family that you didn't take drugs, right? Drugs were bad. Now, I'm not talking about drugs. I'm talking about drugs, any kind of
Medicine.
prescription
Mhm.
drugs, right? Medicine, right? And that you just would take a supplement and exercise enough and eat a healthy enough diet. And so I felt shame. I felt like I had to not ever look at a piece of red meat or dairy or anything. I had to be a vegan. I had to work out. Like I felt shame that I couldn't get my cholesterol down. It's genetic. When women start to lose their hormones, your cholesterol goes up. It's just a fact. So hormone replacement therapy. I can't do it because I have a history of clotting in my family.
Okay.
But many, many people have found that it also ties in with heart disease. It just does that if you have hormone replacement, it helps with that. So that's something that people should definitely look into and get a professional. So that would be a lifestyle choice that I can't individually. But I will say that in terms of absolutely 100% that meditation has helped. Bob Roth from the David Lynch Foundation just recently spoke at our Wise and Wonderful Women's Group. TM, there's actually a transcendental meditation. I do it once a day. I really should do it twice a day. It has changed my life. It has changed my numbers. Even my cardiologist, I've got many cardiologists that are kind of in the fold because of the American Heart Association. Almost every single one of them now is saying that's key. So I'll tell you that's number one. Number two is you should have cardio every day. Get your heart going. Now, it's super important not to do too much cardio. So I was like, okay, I'm on my spin, and I'm like up to 140, 150. I'm hurting my heart. So you have to have your cardiologist say, with your age, with your heart history, and with your weight, what your level can go up to. So you want
Mhm.
to be always wearing an Apple Watch. For me in the Netherlands was life-saving as well. The 8 or lower has more heart apps on it than the newer versions
Oh,
of the
interesting.
Apple
Okay.
Watch.
I've got
But
one too on,
nonetheless,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And so they will give you you're able to look at it and say, wow, my heart rate is really up, and that's not usual, right? You should also just, because you don't want to overextend yourself. Diet, really important. And I'm actually part of my part of my journey is I have so many people saying I'm not eating, getting off of protein because they're stepping away from not wanting to have the fat.
Right.
But the issue is that if you're having like lots of pasta or bread or even a lot of vegetables, but you're not leveling it out with some protein, but healthy protein like a tofu, low, low in saturated fat protein, whether you're vegan or not, it's important because carbohydrates turn to sugar, sugar turns to fat and cholesterol. So people are trying to be healthy and they're having granola and they're having yogurt. But if you look at what granola and yogurt, the amount of sugar and carbohydrates, it's through the roof. So it's it's a matter of progress, not perfection. But we have to all learn a way to eat in a more healthy way and to not beat ourselves up
Mhm.
because you're not going to feel like working out every day and you're not going to feel like having a you know a protein healthy kale salad, but you need to. And the idea that your doctor's appointments or your tests are expensive, I get that. And I am in a very blessed position to be able to get what I need. But for somebody to say it's expensive, having a stroke and being disabled and not being able to work again or sitting in a chair and drooling, that's expensive.
Absolutely.
That's your life
Absolutely.
and that's your family's life.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it for yourself, do it for the people that are going to end up having to take care of you.
So one thing I will say that, we didn't really discuss in the interview too much was, please, everybody listening, if you need more information, reach out to the American Heart Association. They're not a big bad guy. I know they're one of the big organizations, but they provide very accurate, clear information
Right.
about what you need for your heart.
And they've
So
got a Go Red campaign, which is
yes.
focusing on women's heart health. Okay. And again, it's not just about heart, it's about stroke, aneurysms.
Mhm.
It's all of that. You know what? Recently, also, and again, when you're choosing, if you're choosing, I found that I didn't like. I just came from a family that didn't work out either. So for me to have any kind of routine, it was like, okay, I'm going to get a Soul Cycle bike and it's going to be at the end of my bed. And I wouldn't go. I'd
Yeah.
sit there, look at it, I'd put clothes on it, I wouldn't go. So I would beat myself up. Then I had a gym in my building and I was like, I wasn't going there either. You have to know what works for you. That's the great thing about getting old. You know what you can do and what you can't do. So be honest with yourself and stop beating yourself up. So if you need to sign up for a class, because I'm running to that 4 o'clock class, I will get there.
Yeah.
But if I just have to get there at some point, I'll never go. So know what works for you. Get a buddy if you're going to be working out. Do something online if that works for you. Whatever works for you,
Mhm.
go out and take a walk, but make sure your heart is moving every day for 30 minutes. You must do that for your brain and your heart. Sauna also, statistically, if you do, just Google it. For heart and brain health, sauna 15 minutes a day is great. Now, we don't all have saunas in our house, but if you're choosing, you go, you know what, let me sign up for a gym. Choosing one that has a sauna is the better way to go, right? And so these are just choices that you can make, and they really do make a difference.
Yeah, and there's what I always say in all my shows is there's no free ride. Nobody gets out alive, whether you like it or not. And 60 is not the new 40. When you are 60, you need to pay attention. And Anne, you're so right. I mean, I've been at this for a long time. I'm a nutritionist, I'm a chef. I've written 5 books, I've written cookbooks, I've written vegetarian cookbooks. I was the leading spokesperson for the Soy Foods Association. I've just delved into everything.
Soy got a bad
Well,
name. Somehow along the line,
and
it was like
that name,
soy is going to give you breast
that's
cancer,
another
right?
show, and I'll talk to you
Right?
about that another
Yeah.
time. But yes, what I think what the best thing to do is, you hit the nail on the head, is do what you're willing to do. If you're not willing to go to a spin class, but you're willing to take a walk, if you're not willing to go to a gym, go to a yoga class. It's very gentle. It's very, very effective and very gentle at the same time. Grab
Right,
a
but you have
friend.
to get your blood
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
That's the
yes,
thing.
but
You
you can
have
do
to get
you
your
can
blood
do
going.
that. You can do that in any exercise, truthfully, if you work at it. So these are all good things. And you're doing a lot now. You're a top real estate agent. You're doing interviews. I see you're doing some cooking segments, and you're doing the Wise and Wonderful Women retreats. How do you feel about working so hard and starting new ventures as an older adult?
I mean, I'm just hitting my stride. So, I mean, I I have so much more knowledge now than I did. I want to connect women. I feel like women need to be boosted, connected, to not feel that they are the only ones that feel a certain way. And God, when you get into a room, like we went to one of our retreats last year, and I was like, okay, raise your hand if you can no longer do a jumping jack because you're going to pee yourself,
Yeah,
or you see the bathroom door and
yeah,
you're like running,
yeah,
or I carry a jar in the car,
yeah,
like, talking about like pelvic
yeah.
floor strength. Every single person in that room was having an issue, but like no one, I really felt like I am the only person. Like, why do I have to go to the bed? You know what I mean? So we all connected. We shared information. We didn't feel so alone and there was no shame. And it's like now we're calling each other up. What do you use? How are you finding this helpful? My doctor, a friend of mine, it just, we need to talk to each other. A friend of mine coded 2 days after I talked to her because when she was saying about how she was having, I was starting to tell that story about that she couldn't breathe. She didn't have a fever. And it's like her doctor said, I'll see you next week. And I said, please go to the ER. And I could only push her so much. And 2 days later, she almost died. She coded. If she had been on a retreat, she would have been dead. And so it you have to trust yourself. You have to get on the phone and speak to a friend. Anybody can always call me. I'm gonna always tell you to go to the ER. But you've got to take it seriously and not be gaslit, because you know what? They don't say to men, you're working too hard. They don't say to men, you're anxious, you're just nervous, calm down. Would you ever say that to a man?
Right,
Never.
right.
So in terms of work, doing this later in life, I just bring more to the table. That's it. I mean, and I have more energy, and my 20 somethings in the office will tell you I've got a ton of energy, and I just feel like I live a life with purpose. And if you look at the blue zones, they say spiritual practice, getting, exercise, low on red meat, not drinking. I don't drink anymore. I just don't feel good when
Hmm.
I drink. It's
Hmm.
not a judgment. I
Right,
don't. I know
right.
it leads to inflammation. My hands are more achy. I just don't. Um, but a sense of purpose and connection, and that helps you. That's good for your heart.
Absolutely. And it's a lifelong journey. And it's such a pleasure to see you thriving in all these
Thank
areas of
you.
your life. And I wish you many, many, many more years of health and happiness. And I want to
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for joining. And in closing, I want to ask, what do you like about getting older?
The wisdom,
No.
the wisdom, and the life. Listen, I think about all these people in my life that are around me, watching my girls. I mean, they are the loves of my life. They're 24 and 26. And I mean, God, it doesn't get better than that. I'm
I know
very
I have a
blessed.
24-year-old daughter. I'm just so madly in love with her. It's just
I'm in love.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're rolling their
Wonderful.
eyes as they're
Yep.
watching this, I'm
Yep.
sure.
For more information about Ann Cutbill Lenane and her various adventures, go to
Danny gets it
www.anniegetsit.com, and
done.
we'll post that on the when the show is. And I want to thank all of you who are listening. I'm Patricia Greenberg, and this is It's Okay to Be Old. And for more shows on aging well, please subscribe to this channel. And for more information, feedback, and topic ideas, you can email me at www.patriciagreenberg.com. Thank you again, Ann. I look forward to more
Thank you.
conversations.
All right. I hope to see you in one of our Wise and Wonderful Women meetings. Take care.
Absolutely.
Take care. Bye bye.